Hi, I'm Debbie Lucci from the Deborah Lucci team, William Ravis Realtors here in Andover, Massachusetts, and I'm here with Matt Witte. And Matt Witte runs the Matt Witte team. He is in the office in Andover with William Ravis as well. And the last time we got together, we talked about negotiations, which I think is something that is a huge difference between agents and what they're capable of. And this week's topic is going to be marketing, the difference between skills that agents have of how they market sellers' properties. And a lot of times, I think what gets frustrating, sellers think that all agents are the same as far as what they do for marketing. And that probably could not be further from the truth. So, Matt, I know you will market a lot. Talk a little bit about, some of the things that you think are crucial when marketing a seller's home.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is getting as many eyes on it as possible. And it's not always the consumer that is looking on Zillow and Redfin that's going to find this property. It's the aunt and the uncle and the sister and the cousin and the brother and the friend. So blasting it out, as we have, you and I have both have very big databases, I think more than the average. Just getting it to the databases. I think my database is almost 15,000. I know yours is over 20,000. You've referenced it before. And just getting it to those thousands of people to start. And just like shopping, we all go shopping. Once you see the ad, then our ads tend to circle back. So it's called retargeting.
Right.
And I know that a lot of agents are not doing retargeting. It is a little bit confusing, to be honest with you. When someone showed me how to do it, I was like, this is weird. I'm a realtor. I don't know how to do this. And now we have marketing people that do it for us. But I would say just that's one of the biggest things we do. So it's not necessarily just push it out to social and 15 people on Facebook see it. It's getting it to the tens of thousands of people, which has nothing to do with just the basic MLS.
Right. I mean, anybody can. And I think that that's really what all agents do is they just throw a lot of, people assume we just throw it in the multiple listing service and then it goes out to, several different sites and, and that's what we do. And I think it comes down to a lot of things. I mean, the big thing I think is the coming soon advertising and where it goes and who you tell about it. And, we don't market it just to our agents. We market it to, every agent we can find in Massachusetts. I mean, we have a database of all the agents in Massachusetts and people's houses will go out there. I mean, so that's not just the multiple listing service. And we tell them way before, because what we don't want to do is, so we kind of use the analogy on my team is, if you're opening up a new restaurant, I mean, would you let people know about it ahead of time so you could create like a line out the door? Or are you going to, all of a sudden open the doors and say, okay, I'm open now? You would never do anything like that. You're going to tell them way ahead of time. So I think this whole coming soon advertising and where you direct it, once it hits our CRM program, it goes out to everybody that qualifies in that CRM program, along with all the agents that we have on our database. We have over 7,000 agents in our database. So I think this whole strategy is important because just because it hits multiple listing doesn't mean how much time are you giving someone to really see the property? Not that much. I know a few days. You don't want to let it stay out there too long because it starts to look old in this market. But I think the coming soon advertising is key. And I think if sellers really want to get the most money for their property, don't call the agent at the last minute and say, I want to put my house on the market tomorrow. Really take advantage of that coming soon marketing. And I don't think they should ever be embarrassed about calling us too early. I think if they're thinking of selling in the next 6 months, they should be giving us a call now to talk about it.
Right. 100%. And even within our office, like we all communicate, via the Ravis portal of what's coming on. And we talk to clients and we can't necessarily get into the properties early, but like you said, it's about getting ready. Sometimes people are pulling up old photos and getting information. And once it comes on, it's exciting,
Right. So what we do on our team too is we also market each other's listings. So that helps a great deal. So not only are you getting your own agent to their listing, you're socialing the property, and they're putting it out. You also have every other team member out there doing the same thing. So you get a broad reach. So I think there's a huge difference in marketing plans between agents. And I think it's important to point that out to the sellers, because between negotiations and marketing, those are really two key reasons, two out of several, but two key reasons why you should be hiring an agent. So I think it's important to really ask that agent what they're going to be doing for you.
Definitely. And to add to that is we both use professional videos and videographers, and there are oodles of listings that don't even have a basic video on there that you see and you're like, goodness, I wish I could see the inside. There's no virtual tour. There's nothing highlighting the property. And it's agents, in my opinion, that aren't spending money. And I think it's important to justify that.
How many houses have you seen on the internet? I mean, toilet seats up. No, nobody professionally photographed that house. I mean, somebody went in with their cell phone, or had a lousy photographer go in there. And if you think about it, how many sites, over 300 sites that house is going to be on, and that is what they put on there to sell that property. And that seller is paying them thousands of dollars, and they were too cheap to hire a top-notch photographer who would do videos for them and do a high-end photography. I mean, to me, I think you really got to look at that. Who are they hiring for a photographer, and what are they going to do for the property? There's a big difference.
Yeah, yeah. Because when do you ever have a seller say, "Let me see some of your old listings"? Because they never ask me, but I just have it. Like, here are 3 listings that we either have now or have sold in the past. That's an example of virtual staging. That's an example of a video highlighting the town and the house. That's an example of a virtual walkthrough. Instead of, we talk about how great our marketing plan is, but there's no proof, and a lot of consumers aren't going to go and digging through that. So it's important to say, show me, show me even just some of the hard copy stuff we have. Do you know what I mean? Show me the print, because print sometimes gets pushed to the wayside, and it's important.
Man, how many times have you gone to a house and somebody has just printed out on cheap paper what's in the multiple listing service, and they leave it at the house?
Yeah.
Right.
The worst. Yeah. It's
No,
just cut off. You can't even see if it's town sewer. It's cut off at the bottom. It's unreal.
And I think the other thing that the seller really needs to pay attention to is who's going to be the buyer for that property, and how does that buyer look at marketing? So I'm not 35. I know that's a surprise to you, Matt, but I'm not 35. So,
34.
right. So you're going to market to me differently than you would market to a person buying a larger family home. I mean, I've downsized now. So I think the seller really needs to remember that, and who they're speaking with, and can that agent do that? Because, we recently kind of encountered a seller, and the agent was great. The agent on the other side was great. But I'm not sure that she could market to a younger buyer like we could market to. And I think that by the end of it, they really kind of looked at it like, you know what, they're right. We need to hire somebody that can market to that younger buyer, and market where that buyer is going to be looking, and not just throw it in the multiple listing service. So I think that that's important.
It is. And those younger buyers, we know where they are. They're on all the social media platforms.
Right.
And even the ones like, for me, like TikTok, I'm like, I'm not going on TikTok. Why would I go on TikTok? The consumer's on TikTok, so our videos are going on TikTok. You know what I mean? It has nothing to do with what I want. It's about getting all the eyes on it.
Right. And if you have a 55 plus development, you're probably going to focus in a different area a little bit more, probably more on Facebook, and Instagram kind of covers both areas. But I think that's something the seller really needs to think about. It's important, I think, to connect with the agent, but you've got to really remember, can that agent market to the buyer of this house? And that's important, because when the seller bought the house, it's probably going to be just, the same type of person when you bought it. If you were 25, 30 years old when you bought that house and raised your family there, you're probably not going to be selling it to someone in their 60s. You're probably going to be selling it to someone in that younger age group with children. That And so you got to hire somebody that really understands what's going on in that area for that buyer and how to market it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I put one on in Havel today, and we were talking, and so we were talking like, what is the angle? It's not all houses and condos are the same. The angle is this is a townhouse in Haverhill, bars, restaurants, commuter rail to Boston. That's the angle that we're going after. And it's not all the same because in Andover, it's a little bit different, and in North Andover, it's different. In Westford, it's different. In Methuen, it's different. So it's, being a chameleon to these different areas and really understanding that.
It's funny because I remember a particular buyer that I had a long time ago, and I said to him, you know, you're looking in Andover, and he was from Texas, so he didn't really even know the area that well. And I said to him, so, all right, I've been showing you property in Andover, and I've been showing you property in North Andover, and you keep gravitating towards North Andover. What is it about North Andover that you really like? And he liked the fact that he thought it was a little bit more rural than Andover, and he liked the feeling of North Andover. So I think it's definitely important to really take a look at what that buyer is looking for and market to that. And I, you know, I think what I see a lot of agents do is they just don't take that time, or they don't think of, and I think you and I are pretty lucky because we have different age team members on our team. So, I think the youngest is 25, and the oldest is in her 60s. So I think that what's interesting is I love to watch how different age groups and what is important to them and how they look at things and how you would market to them. Because I can see like somebody that maybe is trying to get some downsizers, maybe they're going to hit the house with a lot of, area with a lot of postcards, because that's how a buyer is going to look at it. Where if you've got somebody that's like in their late 20s and 30s, they're not even looking at the postcard.
No chance.
Right. It's
Yeah.
totally different.
I'm glad you brought up postcards because that's something that I think some agents won't spend the money on. And we spend, doesn't matter what we spend, but we send out hundreds of postcards to the neighbors. And we're soliciting, we're not sending it out so I get another listing. That's what a lot of people think. I'm sending out saying, do you have friends or family moving that want to move to your neighborhood? Those people will pay a premium. So if the sister's in the neighborhood, this happened once. I sold a house in Lynn. The sister was on the same street. They told me this. My sister's on this street. We knew they were going to pay top dollar for that house, and they did.
Well, that happened to me too. Like the same thing. He said to me, my sister's on the street and I'm a single dad and she'll babysit for me. I mean, like, he was buying that house.
Exactly. So the postcards can be just as valuable, if not more valuable, just because of the motivation.
Well, think about it. The people that live on that street like that street and want people that they like to move into that street.
True.
So right. So I think we also, if it's a young buyer's house, I mean, they're coming from Boston, they're coming from Charlestown, they're coming, they want more space. So you've got to be able to market to that area there. That's why a lot of times, I'm in favor of open houses, because I think that that's where some of these buyers, their agents may not necessarily be coming out showing them the property. So you've got to be available for an open house in order for that buyer to come out.
Exactly. And we want to see as many people in the open house, and we want them to see each other.
Right.
Like I went to the open house, there was 20 people there. It increases the motivation and the offer.
I think also what's important is I think you have to have a strategy. I think you have to have like, it doesn't take any talent to, put the house on, take a few pictures, put the house on the multiple listing service, accept an offer in a day, especially over the last couple of years. And that's what you have for a marketing plan. And everybody's like, oh, that's great. I think it takes more talent to have a strategy of the coming soon marketing, what you're going to do for that, when you're going to put the house on the market, when you're going to start showing the house. And then if you have an offer deadline, if you don't have an offer deadline, if you explain to the seller the pros and cons of having an offer deadline, but maybe, what happens if somebody writes an offer early, that you need to talk with them a little bit about that. But I think you have to have a whole strategy, because you can put the house on the market too long, or you can put the house on the market not long enough so no one sees it. And especially if you have no coming soon advertising and you don't have that wide reach of getting that house out there, then you just throw it on the multiple listing, have no offer deadline. I think you've done your client a huge disservice and left thousands and thousands of dollars on the table.
Definitely. It's way more scientific than a consumer might know because they're not in the space. Do you know what I mean? Like it's very, like I'm very, very disciplined about putting it on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. That's what we
That's
do.
how I do it.
Yep, we put them on the market. We put houses on the market on Wednesday. We start showing on Thursday, and then we open it up and pretty much have usually, depending on if there's a holiday or something like that, an offer deadline on Monday. And I think what it does is it gives time everybody to see the house, so no one's rushing. I think it creates less buyer's remorse because they've had time to really think about it. They don't feel pushed. And I also think that, it leaves no buyer, the excuse they haven't seen the house. It's had the coming soon advertising ahead of time. You know when it's coming on the market. We've given you ample time to really think about it. You can get your financing in order. You can bring your mother, your father, anybody you want to look at the house. A lot of sellers, talk about, we bring this up to them, is it okay if a buyer does a pre-home inspection? And we talk about the pros and cons of that. But I think having a wide marketing reach is the key. And that's just not done by just throwing it in the multiple listing service. And I think it's in the seller's best interest if they really talk to the agent and say, who do you think the buyer is for this property? And how are you going to attract them? And show me your marketing plan. And we have something that's like a blow by blow in writing of exactly that, what we're offering our sellers.
I love that. And I think the average Jane agent isn't going to have that. They're not. They're just not. And because we've seen it. And
Mm-hmm.
I know from experience, 13 years ago, my marketing plan was disgraceful. So I can be one of those agents that said wasn't good enough, and you have to make those adjustments. Like you even mentioned professional photography. But one thing that is kind of a pet peeve is the paragraph description of the property. And some of it is so poorly done. And I'm not saying I'm an outstanding writer because I'm not. I have a math degree that should tell you everything. But my wife is actually published, and she will read it for me and say, "All right, let's make a couple adjustments to this." She knows what I'm trying to say,
Right.
and then I have the seller proofread it and to
Mm-hmm.
make sure they're okay. So I saw a listing recently that literally said, "I'm not making fun of this agent, but I'm okay, a little bit, maybe a tiny bit." And I know the agent. And I think she's awesome, but there's typos in there, and it says something like, "What a great home." It says the same word twice, home. And then and says Dan, DAND, and it just tells me she's not unintelligent, she's not lazy, this, that, but where's the proofreading? Where's the team backing that up and saying, Matt, you have a typo here. Did you notice that? Or my wife saying, there's a typo here. You need to fix that. And I think that's just as important as anything else.
Well, also what I'm noticing is in a lot of these listings, there's not as much detail. Is there what? I mean, how much? So we have floor plans done of houses. Okay. And, the house gets measured. We have floor plans done of it. So we can tell you how big the master bedroom is. We can tell you, pretty much approximately, within a few inches here or there, what the room sizes are. And then also just small detail like, does it have hardwood floors? Does it have carpet? I mean, all these small little things that, I mean, I've gone into the multiple listing service and I'm like, I don't know if this master bedroom is on the first floor, the second floor. I don't know I don't know anything about it by looking at it unless I have to go into the property. And I think what happens is you're going to get a lot of people that aren't maybe really serious buyers on your property because they don't have enough information. And so I think giving them the information and taking the time to really go into that detail makes you have more qualified buyers on your property.
It's true. I love that you mentioned that because you'll see. So for the consumer that might be watching this, you'll see 10 rooms listed on the MLS: living room, kitchen, all that. So Debbie's talking about like beyond the floor plans, but you'll have the dimensions right next to it, right?
Yep.
Very easy to understand, and then it'll tell you what kind of flooring you have, what floor it's on, like she described, so on and so forth. So that's super helpful.
Yeah, I just think, the more detail you can give a buyer as far as things are concerned, there's less surprises. I mean, if it's a four-bedroom house, why, it's a four-bedroom house. If it's a three-bedroom, don't put down four bedrooms. I mean,
Right.
be
Be
specific.
cautious about lawsuits. I mean, even
Right,
saying phrases like "you can walk to the train," that's a fair housing violation for people that are disabled, and a lot of people don't know that.
right.
That could
Yeah,
be a potential
yeah,
lawsuit. I didn't get the house because I'm disabled, or I got it because I'm disabled. House is great for families. I don't have kids. You're
right.
discriminating against me.
It's
And
very, it's very different than it was when I first started. You have to be careful with a lot of
yeah,
things that you say.
nuts. And maybe people think it's too sensitive, but it's the law is the law, and nobody wants a lawsuit.
Hmm. Right. So, what is your play on how do you think you get the most money for a house between marketing, strategy, things like that?
Yeah, so I think kind of what we talked about, making sure that we have that entire marketing plan. Everything's the same for every listing. It doesn't matter if it's a little condo or a $1 million house. Everybody gets the same photography package, same Matterport, two professional videos, postcards. We contact all the neighbors. We do a lot of things I think some people will not do. We put out tons of open house signs.
Hmm.
Some agents don't even put out open house signs. So I think it's really just doing everything on steroids. And then the most important thing, and I know you know this too, is pricing. And pricing is very difficult. And being able to have a very hard conversation with how critical the pricing is, instead of just saying what they want to hear. I'm just trying to get the listing. So being truthful with them.
Right. Because what I'm noticing now is home inspections are back. And if you overprice that house, you're going to have less buyers bidding on it and more contingencies. And that's where, if you have an agent, okay, so think about this, Matt. You have an agent that can't even tell you the right price of your house. Okay. So they're going to overprice that house probably because they're going to tell you what you want to hear. And then what's going to happen after that is they're not going to get that many offers. Maybe they get one. What if they have to do a price adjustment? They may not even, like, oh, geez, I don't want to call them and tell them they need a price adjustment. So what happens is the house is going to sit, and the longer the house sits, the worse it is for the seller, and they're going to get less money. And what's going to happen is now you're going to have a home inspection contingency, and those buyers have had it rough for a little while. So what's going to happen is now the buyer might come back and say, I want 10,000, I want $25,000 off. Then also what happens, what happens with the appraisal language? This is subject to an appraisal. And what happens if it comes back and it doesn't appraise? What happens if there's a financing problem? I mean, all these contingencies that we didn't have over the last few years are coming back. And if you overprice that house, you're almost guaranteed to have them.
Right. It's scary when you sign a 6 month contract with a realtor. You better be sure, because it can be a long road if it doesn't go the way it needs to go, because you are locked into that contract whether you like it or not. You are stuck with that agent. So to take the extra time and interview as many agents as possible is more than worth it.
All right. So, what do you think about off market listings that don't have all this advertising behind them?
Yeah, so the only off market that I recommend are homes that are in deplorable condition. So like the houses like are literally dangerous for you to enter into, which I've sold two of those in the last
Hmm.
12 months. You could literally get killed if you touch a wire or something. Like they had to sign disclosure forms like I won't touch anything, and the power has to be off, and those kind of houses are the only ones I don't really want on the market. How do you feel about it?
Oh, I think you're doing yourself a huge disservice if you are a seller and you don't put your house on the market. And let's say I just want to test the market on an on off market listing. I mean, what if you're taking those handful of really, really serious buyers and you're testing that market? And let's say a lot of times I just want to test the price to see if it works. You're starting out on the wrong foot. I mean, there's a certain way to do it to get the most money for the house. And I just think off market listings are a huge disservice to the sellers. That's the way I feel.
Yeah, yeah, and I wouldn't disagree with that. Like I said, we're
Mhm.
talking a couple houses out of a couple hundred is nothing. Do you know what I mean? It's but if anyone had a normal, like a quote unquote normal house, like there's two houses I had that were off market, just so people know the difference. One was completely gutted, so it was, you know what I mean. So you can imagine. So I don't know how I market that. You know, like, hey, look at the wires. You know, like that's a tough one to market. And then the second one had mold, absolutely caked all over a finished basement. So I'm like, this is a lawsuit. I don't know how I bring people in here.
Yeah,
You know, so,
they have to either be willing to fix it to get it on the market, or they maybe they just want
and they were
to.
not.
Right. They
Yeah,
just want to wash their hands of it, you know?
exactly,
Right. But
exactly.
if you have a regular, typical house
Regular
without,
house.
right, without those inspection issues, I mean, I think it's a huge disservice. I mean, if you do it right and you have the right agent that does coming soon marketing and has a strategy and that will do all these things that they're really supposed to do, and you price it well, the house still should be gone by the
Right.
end of the first weekend. It should still be gone if you do everything right, and you should end up with more money than if you did like an off market
So
or
true.
or
Yeah.
no coming soon advertising and things like that. So if it's
All right.
done properly, I know it's hard for sellers to really listen to pricing. It's hard, because you don't want them to think that you're underpricing your house. That's not the goal, but you want to price it so that people get very excited about it and you get the best offers with the least amount of contingencies. And that's really the goal of the whole thing. If you don't have the right person marketing your home, and that takes money, Matt.
It does. Yeah.
It
No
takes
listings free. That's for sure.
Right. It took us a lot of money to collect those. Like in our CRM, we have 23,000 people in there. All those agents' information, all the retargeting that we're paying for. You're talking about. We were also talking about like different postcards, high-end photography, staging consult. All that costs a lot of money, but if it's done right and not cut back on, it will pay for itself tenfold over and over again.
Exactly. It's to get the consumer the most amount of money.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because in reality, we could cut a lot of things, but that's not what we're looking to do.
Right. But they have to understand that it's just not commission based. It's going to be who am I going to hire that can negotiate for me? Because if these home inspections are going to come back out, you're going to have to get somebody that can negotiate. And that can cost you more than the commission sometimes.
Yes, no question.
Right. And then who's going to market it to give me the biggest reach?
Right, 100%. Yeah, and
Right.
we do outsourcing to marketing. So I know we're
Mhm.
neither one of us are marketing experts. So we talked about that a little bit. You have Adam obviously, and I have some different marketing companies that I use, and it's all professional. It's not neither one of us making video clips of a professional home. Do you know what I mean? Where it looks
Right.
really bad. I mean, it's really well done.
Right. Our focus is taking care of the seller and negotiating and what do they need and being in touch and reaching out to buyers that are interested in the property.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. It's not
All right. So I think
dicing.
we need. I don't want to cut you off, Debbie, but I know you have another meeting. So we went over here. We went over because marketing is so exciting. So Debbie, how do people reach you?
My phone number is 978-771-9909, and my website is wherehomesgetsold.com.
Awesome. And I'm Matt Witte, 978-273-0099, and I'm at WitteSellsHomes.com. And we will see you next time.